Hello and welcome to Launerin's Gamer Score and welcome to my E3 special. This week we're going to be looking at the highlights of E3, going through as much of it as we can, and I'll let you know what I think. So let's jump right in. First up, I want to talk about the Google Stadia Connect, which is essentially a game streaming service in which you don't need to download any games, patches, or install them on anything. You can just stream them live from the Google data center, which will basically provide all of the processing power to play the games, which means you'll be able to play games at 4K high definition as long as you've got a strong enough internet connection on any screen. So you can use it on your TV if you have the Chromecast Ultra even, or any device that basically can run a Chrome web browser. So it's kind of really innovative, and it's going to come up a lot throughout E3, so I'll fill you in on those details in the future. So they're working with a lot of publishers, EA, Bethesda, Bungie, Square-Enix, Ubisoft, and Capcom, to name a few. So it's basically all about the games. They also announced that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be available on there, which is shaping up to be a absolutely beautiful game, because it's being made by Launerin Studios, which make big epic RPGs, and that's their specialty. So yeah, I mean, with the actual Stadia Connect, if you're looking for the 4K high definition and 60 frames per second, 5.1 surround sound, you're going to need quite a strong internet connection, looking at about 35 megabits per second. However, apparently it does run smoothly if you've only got something like 10 megabits per second, which is pretty good because over here in the UK we don't have a very strong internet capabilities at the moment. You can get up to 35, but it costs you a pretty penny. The entire thing is about 20 years in the making, so they have tweaked it so much over the years. It is available to pre-order now as well. You get a controller, the Chromecast Ultra, and access to Destiny 2, and a bunch of other things equaling about $300. And they've made that available for pre-order now for about 119, I think it was £119. So that's UK currency, and then that works out something like 129 or 130 or something US dollars. So they've also said that the Google Stadia will work with other controllers, as you can see in the background picture that I've put up here. Now, some of the controllers do look similar to the PlayStation 4 controller. Some of them look similar to Xbox, so I don't know whether that means that they'll be kind of cross-compatible with those controllers, or whether it's just a case of they were stock images that they used. You can also use mouse and keyboard as well, which is always good. I don't want to spend the entire video going on about the Google Stadia, so I'll just leave you with this. The Google Stadia Connect will be available in Belgium, Finland, Canada, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Spain, France, Sweden, Germany, the UK, Ireland, and the USA, with plans to expand next year in 2020. The games, some of the games that are available on there, they showed like a montage of all of the games that are available or are going to be available, and some of them that I saw were Assassin's Creed, Mortal Kombat, a Dragon Ball Z game, Tomb Raider, what I believe was FIFA. I saw footballers, Farming Sim, and the Elder Scrolls. I think I saw dragons, and an F1 game. So for more information, go to stadia.com/FAQ. If I remember, I'll put a link in the video description below, and you can find all the information that you want about that there. So now let's move on to the main parts of E3 and try and cover them as best that we can. So let's jump into that. First up was EA Play. So they're going to be this year taking a look at gameplay footage rather than having a big conference, and they're covering 6 games in total: Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Apex Legends, Battlefield 5, FIFA 20, Madden NFL 20, and The Sims 4. Was a little bit confused about some of those games when they announced that's what they were talking about. But it'll make sense because they're talking about updates and new things coming to those games. New season in Apex Legends and things like that. But first and foremost, let's talk Star Wars. So what can I say about the new Star Wars game? It's a single-player action-adventure. It's set post-Order 66, so that's after Episode 3. The main character is called Cal. The part of the game that we were shown takes place on the Wookiee planet of Kashyyyk. I think I've got that right. Sorry if I haven't. So the trailer itself actually started with an Xbox logo, which makes me think that maybe it's going to be Xbox exclusive, or at least to start with. So you play the game with a droid on your back called BD1, which is Buddy Droid 1. And he assists with maps and things like that, and opening doors for you by hacking into them. You can use the Force or your lightsaber to deflect blaster shots. You can throw the lightsaber. You can slow down time using the Force, which I think is a new one. So you've also got the Force pull, Force push, and then the bit that's somewhere in between is the Force slow time. There is a skill point / level up system, which makes me wonder if it's going to turn into kind of an RPG rather than an action adventure. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. It does, however, look a little difficult to know where you need to be going, because the map that you get is kind of a 3D map that isn't very detailed. It's still in the alpha stages at the moment, so this might change, but I did notice that it looked a little bit difficult to know where to go. In particular, there was kind of a dark cave that you needed to go into to get to the next area, and you couldn't see it very well, and I think the player only knew where it was because he works for the company that makes it, and he is their star player and was demonstrating the game. There was a very good bit in it though, where a trooper fired a blaster and you slow time, use Force pull to move the trooper into his own blaster fire, which I think is a really good take on a technique that could be used in the game. So I referenced that the player playing it was their star player essentially, and to be honest, he looked like he was having trouble at a couple of points, so I'm just wondering about the difficulty settings that are in the game and about whether it will be accessible for new players. But we will find all of this out and more on the 15th of November when the game is released. Next up was Apex Legends. So they're releasing a new series for it, which is going to contain new weapons. Sorry, a new weapon, a new game mode, and a new legend. So let's go through those, shall we? We've got the new weapon, which is a plasma-fueled EMG L-Star. It's a gold weapon with a 60-round mag. It's fully automatic, but sustained fire does cause it to overheat. So you can only use the ammo that comes with it. There's no refills on the ground, and it can only be gained using the care packages. The actual creators of the game did admit that this is only because the weapon itself is so overpowered that they didn't want it to be too accessible. Moving on to the new legend that's being introduced. Her name is Watson. She uses quantum laser mechanics to create barriers and devices to shoot down barrages and grenades and things like that, to basically create your own base using these laser barriers, which will damage enemies that try to come through them. So if you know the map and you know these areas that are kind of 3 walls and 1 open, and you can cover that with these laser barriers, you can put 12 pylons down which connect the lasers. So using those pylons, you can play offensively and or defensively, where however you really want to play. You can really adapt your play style with her as well. So now we're going to move on to Battlefield 5. So again, this is an updatey type thing. So there's going to be a new map called Marita. So the Allies are making their last stand against the Axis forces. It's a mountain ridge and a rural town, so you've got a very tight infantry focused, lots of gunfights, sneaky flanking, banana shaped map, and it's part of Chapter 4, which is being released in July. Later in June, however, there is another map coming called Al Sundan. It is a desert coast, large map. It's really vehicle-based driven. You have to fight for possession of critical points. For example, if you manage to claim the airport critical point, you'll gain access to various aeroplanes, and you'll be able to dominate the skies. In addition to that, there's some new close quarter maps coming, which are very intimate infantry combat maps, including a explosives production facility and some small villages with lots of tight streets and things like that. They've also raised the max rank up to 500 to enable you to show off your mastery through the ranks. They're also introducing private games, which are ideal for people trying to capture footage or just want to play with their friends. Another new map coming in October is Operation Underground, which is underground, so like subways and things like that. And there's lots of flanking opportunities and very sneaky flanks if you know the map. Chapter 5 is being released in the fall. Lots of lush green landscapes, Pacific, volcano islands, US and Japan are coming in. So there's going to be new amphibious vehicles, and there's going to be 3 maps with the initial release as well. So that's enough about Battlefield. We're going to move on to FIFA 20 and then on to Madden NFL 20 as well. I will concede I don't know much about sports games. It's not really my scene, but I want to keep people informed as much as I can and give you a little bit of information about what's coming. So with FIFA 20, we've got Volta Football being introduced, which is street football, so it's played in a cage or a small arena. Kind of reminds me of Puma Street Soccer, if you ever played that back in the day. The ball itself, it never goes out of play, so you basically use the walls of the arena to kind of pass back to yourself. There are various stages that you can play on, from a rooftop in Tokyo to a cage in London to an underpass in Amsterdam. Also introduced, or as far as I'm aware, because I don't really play FIFA games, you can now create female players, which gives you the opportunity to play the story as a female player. So they talked a lot about football intelligence and covered 3 topics: on the ball, off the ball, and the ball itself. So the things that they're going to introduce on the ball is new attacking and defending tools. Off the ball, they're going to introduce game flow to give some more time and space when you're trying to control the ball. And then the ball itself is going to have new ball physics. So they kept talking as well about trying to make it more authentic and more decisive gameplay with better ball control, tackling ability, and introducing new penalty and free kick systems. And FIFA 20 will be coming September 27th. Or if you're a member of EA Access, you'll be able to play it a little earlier on September the 19th. Madden NFL 20. As mentioned before, I don't really know much about sports or sporting games, but we're going to try and whiz through this so that you know what's going on. So they're introducing new features. There's a career campaign where you create your own superstar, become the face of the franchise, working your way up all the way from the NFL draft and becoming a superstar. There's a new scenario engine with dynamic challenges to improve the player. They've introduced playbooks with run-pass options, over 220 of them. You have formations as well. They're going to introduce live updates so that as the actual NFL series kind of progresses, the actual game will be updated with all of the plays and various other formations that the actual teams will be using. In addition to that, they've introduced X Factor abilities to the superstars from the sport, so that they play more like their own kind of individual characteristics and more defined. So there's going to be an open beta, or beta, whichever way you want to say it, coming from the 14th to the 16th of June. So that'll probably just be closing by the time this video goes live. So Mahomes is the cover athlete, for those who know who he is and what he does. A lot of the players have got their own signature animations, and they've gone through the effort of capturing throw and play styles of various different of the athletes. And that's about all that I've got to say about Madden NFL, I'm afraid. I wish I could tell you more. I wish I could be more enthusiastic about it, but unfortunately, those kinds of games just don't do it for me. However, I do have some interesting news on The Sims. First up, we're going to talk about the Island Living expansion, which is sun, sand, sea, surf, dolphins. So also in the game there is a system that basically, if you look after the island, that the island changes over time. It's kind of like a vacation, but more of a staycation. So it's not just a vacation, it's like a place to actually live. There's also mermaids involved, new outfits, new colours, patterns, hair. There's open water game play, so for the first time you can actually go into the water as one of your Sims when it's not a swimming pool. Also introduced are stilts for house building. So you can actually build houses onto the water, and then you can dive into the water off kind of the decking part of the houses. The mermaids that are in the game are playable as well, as far as I can make out. For the interior designers among you, there's lots more. There's an entirely new way to build houses, and there's new items, wallpapers, and the lot. Basically, you've got an entire new repertoire of things to choose from. Also introduced a kind of what they referred to at least as gap year jobs. So just quick jobs that you can do just to earn that little bit more income, but have no commitment to them. These include fishing, lifeguards, and like ski and scuba diver instructors, things like that. There's all new behaviours that have been introduced as well. There's a lot of wood buildings and things like that, and it's just got a certain aesthetic to it that makes it look like it is a proper island paradise. There's a new main job, which is a conservationist, which is how you look after the island that you're going to be living on. So also included in this look at The Sims 4 was they talked about the It's Get Better partnership, which is a company that assists and supports LGBTQ. I think that's all the letters. I think there might be more. And they're going to be introducing pride items into the game just to really kind of expand how open and accepting The Sims is as a game, because there's always been same-sex partnerships and marriages in The Sims, dating all the way back to The Sims 1 as far as I can remember. They're going to be coming on June the 18th. The Island Living expansion, that is going to be coming to consoles on July the 16th, but earlier on the PC on June the 21st. At the end of The Sims kind of talk and showing of footage, they did also talk about what the next game pack is going to be. So this is the next expansion pack that they're going to be releasing. And that's going to be the Realm of Magic, which is going to introduce a whole new kind of way of playing and a different kind of aspect to the game, which I think will go down very well with a lot of the players. And that will be coming just later this year in fall or autumn, depending on where you live. And that was all for the EA Play conference, if you want to call it that, but section of E3. I quite enjoyed looking at some of the games that they're releasing. I would have liked to have seen some more new releases, but they did say that they just wanted to focus on the gameplay and talk about the updates that are coming to a lot of their games. But we got a look at the Star Wars Fallen Order. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That name does not roll off the tongue. I'll give them that it's a complicated name. So next up, we're going to take a look at the Bethesda conference. It seems that the Bethesda conference this year was all about essentially thanking the players and showing the players that they, whether they like it or not, are part of Bethesda as well. So Pete Hines, the Senior Vice President of Marketing, was on the stage and he was talking about how the players take the worlds that we create and we make them ours, which I think was a nice little message. And then we got a little message from Todd Howard, who's the studio head, the executive producer of Bethesda, who talked about Fallout 76 briefly. And he said that there was a lot of difficulties at launch and there was a lot of well-deserved criticism. And I think that was very humble, because I know that Fallout 76, including from me, did get a lot of flack. So I'm going to be taking another look at that in the future, especially considering what I'm going to talk about soon with the Fallout 76 updates that are coming or have already come to the game. First up was The Elder Scrolls Blades, which is a mobile game based in the Elder Scrolls universe. So that's currently in early access, and they're introducing, in the next big update, solo battle arenas, new jobs, custom jewelry system, a new dragon quest line, and more. So it's actually released tonight, so that was a few days ago, so that is actually available now. They're also introducing PvP, your own guilds, you can visit your friends' towns, and that's coming in the fall, autumn. They're also bringing Blades to the Nintendo Switch with the tagline Switchblades. So the entire game itself looks like a traditional Elder Scrolls game, first person hack and slash. So that's coming to the Switch in autumn. It is still free. You can use the motion controls on the Switch, and they are doing cross-play and cross-progression with the mobile version. So you can go out for the day, you can play as much as you want on your mobile, come home, put the Switch on, take that to your friend's house, play it there, go back to your mobile later on, and everything will be there that you have done throughout the day, throughout the week, whatever. So that's quite good that they've done that, because it means that you can play anywhere at any time on different platforms, and you still keep your progression. So next up, the big one. We're going to talk about Fallout 76. So they were talking about new legendary weapons, new ways to build camps, and the dreaded sheep squatch. So the big update that they're releasing is called Wastelanders. They say it's going to fundamentally change the game, and I agree. We've got human NPCs coming back to the wasteland. They're looking to claim it before it claims them. So there's a new main quest line as well. There are choices and consequences to those choices with regards to the human NPCs. They're introducing new weapons, new gear, and it is, of course, a free update. And with that, you get the full dialogue trees that were very popular with Fallout players, and that is coming this fall. There is a free trial of the game from June the 10th to June the 17th. So for those that haven't played the game, granted by the time this goes live, because I'm obviously pre-recording it as E3 goes on, the free trial will be nearing its close, but I think you'll still have a couple of days to look at that. And then they introduced the new game mode that they are going to be introducing to it. So the first test is to making it to Vault 51, of which there is no overseer, but it could be you. There's only one way to judge the superior candidate, and that is that the storm has arrived. With monsters of the wasteland, base building, and nukes, you can play squads or you can play solo in a 52-player battle royale with exclusive perks, and that is included in the free trial from the 10th to the 17th. So that update is called Nuclear Winter, and it's introduced a Battle Royale mode to Fallout 76. Now, I'm a fan of the Battle Royale games. I'm not sure whether Battle Royale will work in Fallout 76, but hopefully I'll be able to find time to get on and have a look at that before the trial ends, and I will be able to tell you exactly what it is like. They also went on to say, not showing any footage of it unfortunately, that they're still working on Starfield, their futuristic Elder Scrolls essentially, which is set in space, and they're still working on Elder Scrolls 6, which I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't give us more about, because that was one of the games that I was really looking forward to seeing. Next up was a look at a game from Tokyo Gameworks, which is the Japanese segment of Bethesda, essentially. They're releasing a game called Ghostwire Tokyo, which is an action-adventure horror game. There's a supernatural evil taking over the city of Tokyo. People are vanishing, quite literally just vanishing, pile of clothes on the floor, and that's all that's left. There's conspiracies and the occult. It is not, they say, a survival horror. It's just a very spooky game. Playing the game, you'll come across spirits. Some will be dangerous, some will be peaceful. The enemies in the game, there's some that are like just really weird looking, spooky, if you excuse the quite childish description, umbrella people. And the tagline was, "Don't fear the unknown, attack it." So next up, after that, they brought it back to their roots. Well, not their roots, as it were, but they started talking about the Elder Scrolls Online. So there's Scalebreaker, which is Dungeon DLC, is coming August, and an expansion called Dragonhold, which progresses the story of that was introduced in Elsewhere, if memory serves. Next up on stage was ZeniMax Online Studios. Their creative director came out and was talking about a classic Saturday morning cartoon in a free-to-play mobile form. So it's another free game from Bethesda by the sounds of things, and it's Commander Keen. It was created by id Software in the early 90s, and now it's come back. You've got two main characters, which are Billy and Billy, male and female spellings. There are enemies, allies, and really bad guys. It looks like a drag and drop adventure, if you can kind of picture that. You can defeat the enemies and then explore the world. You can play head-to-head against other players, and that will be coming this summer to iOS and Android. Next up was The Elder Scrolls Legends, which is a mobile card game. Again, that was a free one. They were talking about the next expansion that's coming, adding new cards, new features, etc., etc. And that's coming June the 27th, and that's going to be called The Moons of Elsewhere. So, next up was one of their other big games, which is Rage 2. I haven't got a chance to play it myself recently, but I'm hoping to get a chance to play it soon. They're saying that it's going to become even more predictable, even more insane. They are saying that it is all the rage. They're introducing new enemies, including a sandworm. There's new cheat codes. Bloody Mess, Low Grav, and Rejector Seat. You can kind of imagine what they're going to do. There's new vehicles, including a pilotable mech, a skull motorcycle, and something they're calling the Armadillo, which looks like a kind of heavy armoured bike that just plows through stuff. Moving on from Rage 2, or more, moving back, we're going to talk about Wolfenstein. They're releasing two new Wolfenstein games, one of which is a VR game called Wolfenstein Cyberpilot. So you're basically a hacker. You take control of the war machines and turn them against your enemies. So that's quite a nice concept. That's something that could work really well in VR. Either from probably more so from a seated position in VR, and that's coming in July. And then we've got Wolfenstein Youngblood, which they're promising is going to be bigger than the previous games, with more weapons, more upgrades, and more ways to customize your playstyle. They're saying that it's going to be multiplayer as well. They weren't really very forthcoming with whether it was going to be local multiplayer or online. It's set in the 1980s, and to be honest, it looked quite good. So I might see about getting hold of that myself in the future. In particular, the release date is July the 26th this year. Next up was Arcane Studios, again another portion of Bethesda, having 7 of these studios as part of them. They were talking about a first-person action game called Deathloop. So this was a kind of first-person 1v1 thing where essentially, as far as I could make out, the story was that these two people had different views of the world, and each one's mission is to kill the other, but every time you die, you basically start again. I couldn't really tell you that much about it because it had a kind of mind-bending story to it, and they didn't let us know a release date for it either, but that looks like it could be quite interesting to take a look at. Next up we had id Software. They were talking about essentially their take on the Google Stadia, which is called Orion, which is obviously streaming technology, and they're saying that you can stream games better, faster and cheaper for players and publishers. The actual quote was, with Orion you will be able to stream your game with max settings. So that kind of puts a different spin on the fact that Google was saying that you're going to need a 35 megabits per second internet connection in order to run your game smoothly, and then you've got Bethesda saying that they can do it, but they can do it regardless of what your internet connection is like. And what better way to demonstrate their new streaming technology than to pull out somebody playing Doom Eternal on a mobile phone. So, new Doom game then. The Earth is on the brink of destruction. You've got to travel across dimensions, go to never seen before places. So you'll keep experiencing something new even when you're deep into the campaign. So there'll still be new surprises and new things coming at you constantly. As per usual, they've got some amazing melee kill animations. I think I saw the BFG in there. I'm not 100% sure. The collector's edition comes with a wearable helmet from the Doom protagonist, more commonly known as Doom Guy. And Doom Eternal is going to be coming November the 22nd. But that's not all they had to say about Doom. They're introducing something called Battle Mode, which is a 2v1. So you'll have 2 people playing as demons and 1 person playing as a fully equipped Slayer. The demons can spawn AI demons to kind of control the battlefield. It's a strategy/skill game. And that is the multiplayer mode of Doom. Again, they didn't really specify whether it was local or online. I'm guessing it's going to be online because having all of that stuff going on split screen it'll kind of ruin the surprises that your opponents are leaving for you. And the tagline was that, tell your friends you'll see them in hell. So that was pretty much the Bethesda conference. I've tried to cover as much of it as I can, but I think there were a few other little bits in there that I didn't cover, but I've covered the main bases. The one thing that I will say about Bethesda is a lot of, like I said at the start of this section, a lot of it was about the players and making sure that the players know just how important they are to the company. And they ended by just having a graphic on the screen that said Bethesda and then it just kind of almost like the letters are rearranged, changed from Bethesda to be together, which is quite a nice sentiment, which I'm not going to drone on about. Next up, we're going to talk about the Xbox conference. So it was Microsoft/Xbox. At the start, they spoke about how they were going to be introducing 60 games, 14 games that are from Xbox Studios, 34 games premiering on Xbox Game Pass. So I think what we're going to do with this one is we are going to just tear through as much as we can, talking about the new games that are coming to Xbox. Okay, so let's whiz through some of these. First up, are you a villain or a hero or a psychopath? From Obsidian Entertainment, a game called The Outer Worlds, which looks very good. That's coming on October the 25th. Like I say, not going to go into too much detail about these. Might do about some of them. Next up, we have a third-person action combat game called Bleeding Edge. It's a competitive team multiplayer. The tech alpha is coming in a couple of weeks on June 27th. So it's an online 4v4 melee fighter. It's futuristic with robots, androids, a lot of metal plating. It's very bright and colourful. So that's that one. Moving on, we've got Ori and the Will of the Wisps coming early next year. That's a very cute yet seems serious kind of platformer. We have got a brand new game from the creators of Minecraft. Not sure how brand new they want to talk about. So it's Minecraft mixed with a top-down adventurer RPG. It's called Minecraft Dungeons. It's essentially dungeoneering in the Minecraft world, and it looks huge. That's coming spring 2020, and that's going to have 4-player local or online co-op, which is always good fun in Minecraft. Another one of the games that they didn't really talk too much about but kind of teased us with is coming August the 30th, and that's the Blair Witch the Game. Next up, Cyberpunk 2077. This is one of their biggest games that's coming. It's going to be out on the 16th of the 4th, 2020. You can pre-order it now, and that is direct from Mr. Keanu Reeves, who for some reason has a cameo in this game. For those of you who don't know about Cyberpunk, it's a vast open world, branching storyline game. You can customize your character with in-game choices. You can play as an outlaw mercenary working in the sleazy underbelly of the city. So yeah, futuristic kind of action RPG. It looks a lot of fun. I'm probably going to get into that one as well. I'm going to have no money this year, no money next year, because there's all of these games that I want to have a look into. Next up was a cartoon side-scroller. You care, explore, and learn how to say goodbye. It looked quite cute. It looked quite interesting. That's called Spiritfarer. Next up, Battletoads the Game, 3-player couch co-op. That's really all you need to know about that one. Next up was a little bit of a talk about the Xbox Game Pass, which is available today, and that includes the entire Master Chief Collection, and that's $9.99 a month, and that is now also on PC. So if you want the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is your Game Pass for console, your Xbox Live Gold, and your Game Pass for the PC, that'll cost you $14.99 a month. So that means you can play all of your favourite Xbox games and some PC games as well on the PC version for $14.99 a month. I think that's how Game Pass works. Not 100% on that one. Right, moving on. More games. We've got Microsoft Flight Simulator. New one of those is coming. Looks hyper realistic. Stunning graphics. You wouldn't really expect anything else. Age of Empires 2 is getting a remaster. Don't know why this is coming back around, but I loved Age of Empires 2. I loved the entire Age of Empires series, and that's coming this fall/autumn. Next up, we have got a brief little section on Psychonauts 2. That looked very bright and colourful. Never played the first one though, so I'm not really sure how it compares. I should probably go back and take a look at that. Anyway, more games. Moving on. Next up, we've got all 9 Star Wars films in one game. Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. That's coming in 2020. We've got a Dragon Ball Z game called Project Z. Dubbed Project Z. It's an action RPG, Dragon Ball, Kakarot, something like that. Not really a big fan of the Dragon Ball series. That's not going to go down with a few people. Go down well with a few people that I know, but never mind. That's coming early next year. Next up, 12 minutes, an interactive thriller. Looks like a 12-minute tense game with various ways to play and different options with different outcomes to different stories. This was basically, it was like 2 people in a room having a conversation. I presume you choose different answers to different questions, and it completely changes the story. It seems to have a lot of replayability, and to be honest, looks like quite an interesting game, even if it only takes you 12 minutes to play. Next up, September the 11th, sees Gears of War 5. So, on the 17th of July, they're doing a versus multiplayer tech test. On the 19th of August, they're doing a horde mode test. So these are all things that are kind of being added to the game as it gets developed. It's going to be the biggest Gears campaign ever. Escape. So you infiltrate, you place a bomb, and then you get out of there. It's 3-player local co-op. I presume you can also play online co-op as well. You can create your own kind of hives, which are essentially the levels in Gears, and challenge friends to beat them, which is certainly an interesting thing to put in a game like that. It is definitely something that might be worth a look at. They introduced the new controller, which is the Elite controller, and it is now more elite than ever. It's the world's most advanced controller. It's got an internal rechargeable battery. It's got longer life. You can use it on the Xbox or the PC, and it is Bluetooth compatible. Next up, Forza Horizon 4. But wait, I hear you cry. That's not a new game. That's been out for a while. That's because they're introducing an update on June the 13th. So, already released now. Ralph Fulton, the creative director, introduced us to Lego Speed Champions. That's right, Lego is coming to Forza. Next up, we are really speeding through this now. From Sega. For the very first time, some of Japan's greatest online RPGs are coming to Xbox One. So it's online action combat with cross-play compatibility, all the content, all the bosses, epic battles, and it's free to play. It's a never-ending quest line, so you can literally just keep playing it, and it's got a lot of replayability. That's Phantasy Star Online 2. That's coming spring next year. Next up, we've got an adventure RPG, as far as I could work out. it was just a teaser trailer, and it's a new world created by Hidetaka Miyazaki. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that. This one I'll get right. And George R.R. Martin. It's called Elden Ring. It's being made by Bandai Namco and From Software, so that should be an interesting thing to take a look at. Next up, we're going to talk about the xCloud, Project xCloud, console streaming, and the new console. So the new console has been designed and optimized and built for gaming purely in mind. It has a custom design processor which is 4 times more powerful than the Xbox One S. So that is powerful. It's got a 40 times performance increase. So we're looking at a very powerful, very technological piece of kit. At the moment, they are calling it Project Scarlet. So I don't know whether the name is going to change to something Xboxy like Xbox 2.57, because that one doesn't make sense at all. A little bit of backstory. I do have a little bit of a thing about the naming of the Xbox consoles, considering we went Xbox 360 and then One. But never mind. Let's just move past that. We had a little bit of a teaser for Halo Ultimate as well, which was very nice to see. That looks very interesting. We didn't really get much from the trailer, just that the Master Chief is back, and it looks incredible. So that didn't cover all of the 60 games that were in there, mainly because a lot of them were kind of in a very fast montage where I couldn't really pick out one game from another at some points. But yeah, that was the Xbox conference. Next up is the Ubisoft conference. Let's just jump straight into that one. First up, Watch Dogs Legion. Set in London. Tagline is, it's all of us together. Aim of the game is to recruit the Resistance, one person at a time. The Resistance is, of course, DedSec. It's very futuristic. There's drones. The car's auto-drive. If your character dies, though, it is permadeath. But you switch to a different recruited character within the roster. Each character has their own special abilities and things like that. So some can deploy small robots that attack people. Others can hack into the various drones and things like that. So every character in the actual game, every person that you see is recruitable and playable. You just have to basically convince them to join DedSec, complete their origin story, and then you can play as that character. Each and every one of them has their own skill set, their own backstory, their own relationships and things. So it's a very open game, and you can literally play it however you want. So there's a lot of things going on in the game, including human trafficking, which is one of the big things that seems to be a part of it. The combat in it is very fast-paced. It's ranged and melee. By the way, the game is set in London. That is something that they are very adamant on reminding us constantly. And again, they talk about how everybody has a reason to fight, and DedSec is open to anyone. By the way, it is set in London, just to let you know. So the UK has become a surveillance state. And yeah, so literally one of the things that they did say is, whoever you want to be, Watch Dogs Legion lets you be that. So You can literally recruit a crew of British spies, street-savvy kids, or one of the big things that they kind of focused on was the women of Bletchley Park, which is basically you can recruit old women that have got background skill sets. Like, for example, one of them is a retired assassin. So the next kind of portion of it said that being a hero isn't a job for anyone, it's a job for everyone. By the way, just to kind of finish this bit off, it is set in London, just in case I wasn't clear about that, and that is coming March the 6th, 2020. So next up we had Rob McElhenney, who is an actor from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Allegedly, he loves games, and in conjunction with Ubisoft, they have created a comedy TV show based on video game development. So as far as I can work out, the actual program is called Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet, which is the new update that they're releasing to the fictional game. He plays Iron Grim, who has a big ego, and quoted, when we think about legends, we think about Mythic Quest even. Definitely looks amusing. TV programs based around video games, I think, are always interesting to see. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that and have a look. So next up, Brawlhalla. So as far as I can work out, this works kind of similar to like Super Smash Brothers and things like that, with game characters fighting against each other. And now they are introducing the Adventure Time crew into that. So you can brawl online or local. I think it's actually a free-to-play game. I'm not 100% sure on that one, though. Next up, we have Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The quote from that was, "The only test of a man's worth is battle. And we are ghosts, and ghosts never die." Which I think is a little bit cheesy, but never mind. So they're introducing AI teammates for those who want to play it solo. They've created a brand new community in conjunction with it, which is Ghost Recon Delta Company. And that's for streamers and just general support and more. So the game itself is coming on October the 4th. The beta will be available from September the 5th, as long as you register now. They are promising new content, free updates, and many surprises inspired by the community. So from one Tom Clancy game to another, we've got Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which essentially contains all of the characters from other Tom Clancy games. It's a mobile RPG. Choose from several different classes, including Attacker, Guardian, Team Leader / Gunner, and Counterintelligence and Strikers. You've got to rally the specialists, basically. Pre-register now, and you can unlock the Ghost Recon character within that. We didn't get a release date for that, though. So from very serious Tom Clancy games to the celebration of 10 years of Just Dance. They are releasing Just Dance 2020. They're saying that they've been going for 10 years and there's a lot more to come. And that is released November on all platforms. Back to Tom Clancy. Watching Ubisoft on stage, I kind of forgot just how many Tom Clancy games there are. So this is very Tom Clancy based, essentially. So Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Quarantine is a 3-player tactical co-op game. It's coming early next year. And we got to hear from the lead game designer. and they have radically redesigned co-op shooters. So it's a mix of a tactical and survival game, essentially. And now we're going to talk about, that's right, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. So from June the 13th to June the 16th, a little bit late, sorry about this, you can play it for free. They're releasing a major update, and they're saying that they're going to be moving out of the city, so that you're no longer just saving a city, but an entire nation. So episode 1 of the new update sees the outskirts of DC, which is Woodlands, the National Zoo, and Kenley College. Kenley College is a kind of different take on the game, including exploration, investigation, and logic puzzles. Episode 2 is the Pentagon, the Last Castle, and that's coming in the fall. So you have to secure what lies behind the walls of the Last Castle, being the Pentagon. So that's going to include a new raid with intense 8-player action. Episode 3, they were very cryptic about. The quote was, "What if Rebirth was not bringing the world as we know it back to life, but the opposite? One man holds that power." And then they just said that you have to engage in a manhunt. That's coming early next year. Hopefully we'll get a bit more information on that. More The Division news. They have teamed up with Netflix, now bringing us the Division movie. Not really sure how that's going to work, but it might be interesting to take a look at. Next to the stage was Brenda Penegrassi, the Vice President of Platform and Product Management. She was talking about Uplay, their subscription service, which essentially gives you access to over 100 different Ubisoft games, and that's just $14.99 a month, and that's US dollars. That's launching in September. They also said that is going to work with Google Stadia as well, if memory serves, which means you'll essentially have the subscription service to access all of the Ubisoft games, and then you will be able to play them using Stadia on any device, as I mentioned at the start of this video. So that's quite interesting. I mean, I've never been a big fan of these subscription services because you're paying $14.99 a month, which, granted, games these days cost 3-4 times that. But if you go basically 3 months, for example, without playing a different game, then is it really worth the money, because you're forking out $14.99 a month to play one game? I suppose in the grand scheme of things, if you go through a lot of games, it is definitely worth it, especially if, like, for example, if you do this kind of thing and you play a lot of games and you want to put a variety of content on your onto your channel, it's certainly going to benefit you to have access to one of those subscription services. So to be honest, although I'm not really a fan of them, it might be something that I might take a look at in the future. So last up from Ubisoft was a new sporting game called Roller Champions. So this is basically roller derby meets basketball. I think it's teams of either 3 or 4 around a ring with a ball, and it's very... there's combat involved in there. You've got to take down your opponents and work your way around the circuit. So it's a very skill-based game. It's team PvP. By the sounds of things, it's going to be local, multiplayer and online, and it looks like it will be a good game to play. It'd be a lot of fun to play, and I think it'd work as a game that's very fun to watch as well, which could make it a very viable esport. Moving on now to the next part of E3. Next up was Square-Enix, or Enix, whichever way you want to pronounce it. So the actual conference itself started off at a curtain stage. As the curtain rose, it revealed the classic Final Fantasy VII start screen with Cloud's Buster Sword and the words "New Game" and "Continue" next to it. And then a couple of seconds later, the word remake appears. Yoshinori Kitase, the producer of the game, again, my apologies for if I've mispronounced that. Thanks everybody for those for their patience. But over the time that they've been working on it, they have been able to delve deeper into the world and into the characters. He then goes on to say that the game will be on 2 Blu-ray discs worth of gameplay content. And the next bit kind of confused me a little bit, because he said that the first game in this project expands on the story of Midgar in an elaborate retelling that is a standalone game in its own right. So, in case you haven't guessed, I'm talking about the Final Fantasy remake, ladies and gentlemen. It is coming, and it is going to be over 2 Blu-ray discs, but apparently it's going to be bigger and more interesting than the original Final Fantasy VII. So, let's get into some details. The remake features a hybrid gameplay system that merges real-time action with strategic command-based combat. So essentially, each time you press the square button, Cloud will swing his Buster Sword, attacking the enemies, and then each hit fills up your ATB gauge. That's right, the ATB gauge is back. Works a little bit differently than the original one, though. So it fills slowly over time, faster when landed in standard hits, and then when it's filled, you can enter into tactical mode, which then gives you access to your ability menu and your spells and your items. So what this means is essentially you can have the combat going quite fluidly, and then if you want to do something special or something different, you can slow down time and go into the tactical mode, where you can then play about with some of the special abilities that you have unlocked. It looked fluid. It looks like it'll work, and I'm very impressed with the way that they've done it. To be honest, I think they've taken a lot from the way that they've done the Kingdom Hearts battle system, because it seems to work in quite a similar way. Another thing that impressed me, which is a little tiny thing, which always bugged me in the original game, but you can now see the materia that you have equipped in your weapon in real time as well. So when you have multiple characters in your party, which you do quite early on in the game, the other characters do fight automatically, but then when their ATB gauge is full, it's up to you to let them know to use their magic or their abilities, etc. So in addition to that, the Mako Scorpion, the Sentry from the first reactor, they showed the battle with that, which has changed an awful lot, because now it doesn't just have kind of a 2D platform to work on, it has a 3D Mako reactor to attack you from within. So there's a few other things that they demonstrated. They demonstrated how to use magic, which I've gone over a little bit, how to use items and use the combat systems. They demonstrated how to use Braver and how to use Cross Slash. And then they showed a little bit of footage from the game, including the classic bike combat, which was a personal favourite of mine. And for those who don't know about the trio that seemed to appear in, well, more the duo with the additional one, that seemed to make an appearance in every Final Fantasy game, Biggs, Wedge and Jesse are back. They are in there. They have introduced Tifa into it, and Aerith or Ares, depending upon which part of the world that you are with. They're both in there, definitely, as if they weren't going to be, but they're there. You see them. They showed Tifa's fighting style, which is incredibly fluid and works brilliantly well with this combat system. They showed Shinra HQ, which looks amazing. It's your typical kind of big, expensive corporate, gleaming floors, lots of glass and metal and things like that. I think you saw the church that you fall into as well. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII. Some of this might not make much sense and it may spoil it a little bit, but I am very excited because for two reasons. We got a glimpse of Sephiroth, who looks as badass as ever, and he was just basically taunting Cloud, which was incredible. And secondly, on the 3rd of March next year is the official release date of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's already on pre-order. It is going to feature on the channel. It is probably going to feature on the channel on a regular basis. I'm considering doing a full walkthrough, which means that the YouTube channel may have Final Fantasy VII on it for the next 12 years. So yeah, in case you can't tell, I am very excited about this one. Very interested to see how it works out. Really hope that it doesn't let us down. Really hope that it does nothing but exceed our current expectations. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Next up was a Life is Strange new chapter release. The main point of this segment was to just thank the fans of the series and kind of show just how much of an impact Life is Strange has had on some people, because apparently it really has changed lives and it has helped people come out of their shells a bit more and things like that. So that was quite interesting. There wasn't really much information in there, just that a new chapter is coming. I've not played the Life is Strange series. I had a little bit of a dabble in Captain Spirit, but I never got into the actual main game. Next up, they announced that Octopath Traveler, the game that they released last year, is coming to PC. It's now an award-winning game. It's apparently very good. Again, I've not had a chance to actually get a look at it yet. That might be something that I'll have a look at in the future. Next up, Dragon Quest Builders 2. It's apparently bigger, a lot more to explore. You've got to battle, harvest, and you can unite on online multiplayer. That is coming July the 12th, with the playable demo coming later this month on the 27th of June. And then they started talking about Dragon Quest XI, which has apparently been remastered and is being released on September the 27th. It's called Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age. Apparently that can be played in Classic and Remastered Edition. So that could be an interesting thing to look at. I've always liked kind of remastered games and things that have been brought a bit more up to date to allow for the more modern kind of style of games that we have these days. Speaking of remastered and remodeled games, they're going to be looking at there's various little companies that work within Square-Enix, and they're going to be reviving a style of pioneered racing games that were, pioneered decades ago. So it's going to be a top-down racing, classic sharp arcade look with tactile driving physics. Essentially, the actual gameplay trailer reminded me of classic Micro Machines and things like that, only with more up-to-date graphics. Apparently, you've got to plan your pit strategies as well, so there's a little bit of kind of strategy thrown in there as well. Race with friends as well, so it's multiplayer. That'll probably only be local, but they may put an online thing in there. So the actual cars themselves within the game, they all look like kind of classic motorsport cars and kind of the old-fashioned, like the Hillman Imps and things like that, and the Frog-Eyed Sprite, proper classic motorsport vehicles. That's coming next year. They didn't give a very decisive date for that. We just got that it was being released in 2020. Next up, they were talking about DLC coming for Kingdom Hearts. It's called Remind, or at least I think that's what it said. That's coming this winter. Really did not understand what was going on in the trailer. I admit I don't know a whole lot about the story of Kingdom Hearts. I do enjoy the games though, because as you probably know, because I've featured Kingdom Hearts 3 on the channel a few times. Right, next up, back to Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers, which is a new expansion for their online game. That's coming July the 2nd. That's going to introduce 2 new jobs. One being a dancer and one being either a gunbringer or a gunbreaker. I couldn't quite understand what was being said at that point. 2 new races as well, being the Frothgar and the Viera. So yeah, that's coming next month. A big expansion for that, so that should be interesting to see. We've got Dying Light 2 as well coming next year. Again, the trailer for this was quite short, didn't really show much of the game. I don't really know much about the Dying Light series, but it looks like it could be quite a good one. So, 2 celebrated JRPG classics are coming to the West. As far as I'm aware, they're both part of the same kind of series. One is Romancing Saga 3, which is an 8-bit RPG with twisting and branching storylines, and it bases the entire storyline on your in-game choices as well. So it's one of those kind of games where you get really invested into the story. The other one is Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions. So you be your own hero, devise your own strategy, choose your own story, and that's coming soon. So they didn't give us a definitive date on either of those, but it should be interesting. I do like a JRPG every now and then. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they might be worth a look. They do look interesting, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up was Outriders, which is a new game, kind of futuristic wasteland with strange creatures, monsters to fight. It's a shooting game, and it's a dark modern shooter with traditional values. You can experience the story solo, or you can experience it with friends, and you create your own Outrider in which to kind of go out into this world and battle against the environment. As far as I can work out, there's probably a big storyline there, but it just slipped through the trailer, and that is coming in the summer of next year. And then we get on to their big drop. well, not their big drop, but a big drop, which is that they are remastering Final Fantasy VIII for this generation, and they are releasing that later this year, which could be interesting. I don't think Final Fantasy VIII was one of the really popular ones, especially since it kind of followed 7, so it kind of had a big battle against itself there. So then that brings us on to one of the bigger games that a lot of people have been looking forward to, and that is the partnership between Square-Enix and Marvel to bring the Avengers game. And to be honest, I was a little bit confused to start with, because I thought, well, they're working with Marvel, how come they haven't managed to get the rights to the characters, because they look nothing like they do in the films. But apparently it's Crystal Dynamics, which is one of the groups that are working on it. It's their interpretation of the characters, and they've done it really well, to be fair. So basically the storyline is that the Avengers have been defamed, basically framed for the destruction of their airship and the death of hundreds of people. So you've got to basically figure out what's going on there. It's an epic action adventure with cinematic storytelling, which you wouldn't expect anything less from Marvel. You can experience it in single player, or you can team up with friends to see what it's like to be a group of the world's mightiest heroes. It's an original story, so it's got nothing to do with the films or the comics or anything like that. It is an entirely original story, and it's all about losing what matters most and then fighting to get it back. So the characters that are in there are Captain America, Thor, Hulk, the Black Widow, and Iron Man himself, obviously. So it's going to be 4-player online play with customization, and they have promised that there are going to be no loot boxes and no pay to win. By the sounds of things, there are going to be other unlockable characters as well, but was neither here nor there. That was just my interpretation of what they were saying. And it's going to be out on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and it'll be available on Stadia, with an early beta coming to PS4. And that is coming out May the 15th next year. So that's definitely something that I will be looking for, especially the early beta, and I'll try and get hold of that. Make sure that the terms and conditions allow me to share it, and I'll maybe put that on the channel as well, just to kind of show that one off. And that was all Square Enix had to say. I mean, I say all, there's some pretty big drops in there. Definitely looking forward to the Final Fantasy VII remake. I'm looking forward to the Avengers game. There's a couple of other of the smaller games in there. The racing one, that's something that I might have to take a look at, because I was a big fan of Micro Machines. So yeah, let's move on to Nintendo Direct. So the guys over at Nintendo, they're releasing some more content for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, bringing the heroes from Dragon Quest XI. This is presumably because of the tie-in with the release of the new game, as well as items from the game as well. I presume they're all heroes, but there are some other characters in there as well, whether they are or not. Not really played the Dragon Quest series again, unfortunately. And they will be coming to Super Smash Bros. In 2019, as well as that in the summer of 2019, so that'll be coming soon. As well as that, in the fall or autumn of 2019, we have the guys, we have Banjo and Kazooie coming to Super Smash Bros. To join the brawl as well. be interesting to see how they play. They had some very interesting dynamics when they showed the footage. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting mixture of characters being brought to the game, and it's nice to see that they're still bringing content to it. Next up was the long-anticipated sequel to Luigi's Mansion. We're on to the third one now. I don't know why it's called Luigi's Mansion, because it's not actually his mansion in this game. Basically, you're staying in a hotel. As it turns out, all the other guests are ghosts. The big thing with this one is you will be able to create Gooigi, which is basically a GUI clone that you use to solve certain puzzles, which you switch between normal Luigi and Gooigi in order to solve puzzles, and then he can walk over like spikes and things like that, things that would normally hurt Luigi but don't. He is very vulnerable to water though, so it's kind of a case of normal Luigi deals with water puzzles, Gooigi deals with spiky, stabby puzzles. And then in conjunction with that, they've introduced co-op play, so one person plays as normal Luigi, one person plays as Gooigi, and that's how that works. As well as that, they've introduced an 8-player co-op kind of time trial mode called the Scare-Scraper, in which you have to kind of locate and rescue various toads, and obviously battle with all of the ghosts and things that are in the Scare-Scraper. And that is available later this year as well, so that might be something that's going on my Switch. Moving on, there's a new Zelda game as well called Link's Awakening. Obviously, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. It's a top-down adventure. Standard Legend of Zelda top-down kind of thing, really. More kind of the classic kind of Zelda games rather than the Breath of the Wild and the more recent ones. In that you can also create dungeons to kind of find special items and things like that and kind of test your skills. As far as I'm aware, that's what they're there for. That's coming September the 20th later this year. Just a quick one then with this, because there really wasn't much. It was a quick little snippet of information. Just bang, The Witcher 3 coming to Switch later this year. Done. Go. Carry on. Trials of Mana, Fire Emblem Three Houses, they're coming to Switch as well. There's 2 more Resident Evil titles coming to the Switch, Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 later this year in fall/autumn. And we also have a new Contra game called Contra Rogue Core. That's coming September the 24th. It has wireless co-op and online. And that's basically, for those who didn't play Contra, it's basically a massive shooter game where you just basically hold down the fire button and nothing else. It does, to be fair, look like a lot of fun. Next up was Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. I was expecting a lot more information about these games, but they gave us absolutely nothing. They literally announced they were being released, gave us a release date, and that was it. November the 15th, they will be coming. Another Marvel game coming to the Switch this time, though, and that's Marvel Ultimate Alliances. That's a co-op story-based fighting game. That's coming July 19th. These were all very small, very short trailers, because the Nintendo Nintendo Direct conference, it was basically just a video of like the director talking and then just kind of clips of games, and it was all very quick and there wasn't much information in there. kind of similar to the Xbox One, but with less information. In November, we have Mario vs. Sonic at the Tokyo Olympics 2020. So that's coming later this year in anticipation for the Olympics next year in Tokyo. You can compete online with that, with new and classic sports involved. Next up was Animal Crossing Deserted Island. So this was basically a getaway package. It's a survival, harvesting, etc., as you'd expect from an Animal Crossing game, really. That's coming March next year. And in case you had any doubt, Tom Nook does swindle you again. He charges you extortionate amounts of money for bringing you to this island and then saving it. Yeah. And then it was the big drop. And this is the last thing that was at E3 this year, or at least from the coverage that I am doing. So, in development from Nintendo is a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time that they have ever done a direct kind of sequel, like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 kind of thing. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. I will probably look it up after this and be proved wrong by Google. But that's very interesting. We'll be looking out for a little bit more information on that. But considering it's only in development at the moment, we have no release date or anything else on it. Alright, so that's E3 2019. All wrapped up in a nice hour and a half-ish. Yeah, it's been a big year. There's a lot of games in there that I'm interested in playing. There's a couple in there that I was hoping for more information about but didn't get it. I'd heard rumours that there was going to be a Game of Thrones game, which, as far as I'm aware, it hasn't even been mentioned, not a sniff. I was looking forward to hearing more about the Elder Scrolls 6, and we got none of that. But I got the Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I'm not going to complain too much. There's a lot of other big games in there as well. Personal highlights for me were, let me think, the Final Fantasy VII Remake for a start. The update for Fallout 76, because I think they might have just saved themselves a little bit. And kind of looking forward to The Legend of Zelda. I haven't even played Breath of the Wild yet, so I shouldn't really be looking forward to the sequel. I'm so behind on video games. Kind of looking forward to the TV program, the Mythic Quest from Ubisoft as well. Doom Eternal as well, I'm looking forward to that. There's a lot of big things in there that I'm looking forward to, and it's going to be a very interesting year, and it's going to be very interesting to see which games come out on time and which games meet expectations, because there's been a lot promised, and I'm a bit concerned that some developers might not be able to keep those promises. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you did watch this all the way through and make it to the end and are listening to this part, then thank you very, very much for watching and putting up with me rambling. I have been Launerin. This has been my run through of E3, and